Thanks for joining me today. So my name is Scott Whitley, SVP of Sales for Centroid, and joined here with my close friend, Shawnna Hoffman. I would love to introduce you, but I will never remember all the great things that you do and have done. So can you please give yourself an introduction?
Absolutely.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
jump off.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. Actually, what I do is what keeps everyone else up at night.
Okay.
So my name is Shawnna Hoffman. I'm with Guardrail Technologies, a amazing partner to Centroid and also to Scott. So our focus is to put guardrails around AI so that the humans stay in the loop as needed. And exactly.
Yeah.
So important.
Big concept, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's not one that many are trying to solve.
Yes.
Right now, everyone's so excited, oh, AI can do this, oh, AI can do that. Well, great, but if you don't have those guardrails to lead humans in the right direction, to have the AI support us, we really end up with a mess. And, see that in the marketplace today, definitely.
Yeah, so that kicks off our conversation. So
Yeah.
part of my job, right, is to help CIOs, CFOs, CEOs bring their vision to life, right? What do we want to do with our company? How do we modernize? How do we take technology and actually implement solutions that, help the population or help our company or do whatever we're going to do, right? But I think there's a lot of questions that arise. So I think today, if we can just talk about those questions, maybe get some answers, maybe not, right? But have a dialogue around that would be extremely useful for people listening to this. So, the first thing that I'd like to dive in with you is obviously there's a massive ingestion of cash that is happening, from big companies to small companies, and will that return ever happen? And CIOs are being pressured, hey, what's your AI strategy? And then how do you go about that? So, what are you seeing in the marketplace? And obviously this is important, but what are you seeing from a financial perspective? Are there returns in sight? Is there a way to go? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Well, and one of the things that we saw, and actually, let me just mention one thing.
Sure.
AI is not new. It's been here since the 1950s. What has advanced is all of the different types of AI. And so what I would say is the one that's been the most popular to market, it's because it was free, was OpenAI bringing ChatGPT out in the market.
Right.
It was a different AI model that we had before then. So for those first, 50 plus years, we had more deterministic models. Then we had also other ones that solved other problems. But with Gen AI, the whole world got to try it and got to see it.
Right.
Now that's the good, because it's from the 2-3-year-old using ChatGPT. I even one of my mother's friends used it as a magic 8-ball and asked ChatGPT daily, where should I have breakfast? Where should I go to lunch? What should I do then? So you start to see this use
one
of
use
AI.
case I haven't heard of. Yeah.
There's a lot. It's interesting where it tells you, and you just say, I feel like this. What would you recommend?
Right.
And so it's pretty fascinating, the opportunities that AI has provided. But before, it was just those who were willing to spend millions of dollars,
right,
to be part of AI. Now, the cost has gone down dramatically,
right,
which is amazing, but there's more use cases. So it's not that the cost is more.
Right.
The cost is less than AI ever has been, but now everyone's going, oh my gosh, everyone in my company has been able to use it for free. Now they see the benefits, so they're coming with use cases galore. One of my financial services clients, we sat down, they had over 800 use cases.
Wow.
Not joking, a spreadsheet.
Where do you start?
Well, exactly. A rubric is really important.
Right.
And you have to figure out, and usually it's a committee type of decision where you have everyone from the legal department to privacy to, of course, the business and the IT sitting down saying, what's important to our company?
Right.
The one thing that I have seen that's been missing from those conversations is the discussion typically with the CEO to say, okay, the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, and the board too, the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, where is it that we're taking our company? And then how can we come in and bring AI in to support that direction? So instead of using AI as a end all be all, instead have it work for you.
Sure. So if I can summarize what you're saying, it sounds like that there is an end in sight. There is an ROI that's there if you do it correctly and you go about it in the right way.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe successful customers that do that do form a committee and maybe a review panel, seek outside help, right? And do those kind of things. So that's great to hear. But I think before we get into, where do I start and how do I even look at that? What are like some common risks that come up in those board meetings and things that happen? What are the things that say, oh man, I really want to do this, but I'm concerned about this, or just risk in general that maybe they're not even aware of?
Yeah, so I, as a former expert witness, a group that typically will come to me, especially today, are board members from various different organizations. Most are very large enterprises.
Sure.
And so they take me aside saying, okay, here is where my worry is. How is AI responding to our everyday needs?
Right.
We hear of hallucinations. One of my board members over in the UK in one of his solutions, unfortunately, their AI solution chatted with one of the consumers. The consumer cussed out the chatbot. Well, the chatbot cussed out the
Right
consumer
back.
because it's almost like a parrot. It's going to repeat back to
Yeah.
you. But
There's a liability.
there's a huge
Yeah,
liability and
okay.
an embarrassment too. But then
Right.
what it did after that was even more genius, unfortunately, from a 7th grade boy level, is the consumer then said derogatory things about the chatbot and also about the company. The chatbot responded back with a really great poem, almost, like a 7th grade boy would write, to say, okay, well, this is, just hilarious, very good haiku poem.
Wow.
about how dumb the chatbot was, but then on top of that,
Liability.
derogatory of the company.
Bad press, all in a very creative fashion from an AI bot,
Yeah.
just going nuts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in that situation, the consumer was not the AI bot was not protected from the consumer,
Right.
but then the consumer was not protected from the AI bot.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
We have to put those protections in place. Again, guardrails.
So if we're talking about that, right? So there's a financial liability because you could spend endless amounts of money and get nowhere, right? If you
Yeah.
don't have a direction, it sounds like you're saying, or a panel that says, yes, this is actually worth doing.
Yeah.
There's a liability from a consumer perspective to say my brand could be diminished, and just like that with one conversation, right? Depending on what that is, that could be really dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Is there any sort of like legalities around that though that they could actually get in trouble with?
Absolutely.
Is that something that there is regulation around, or is ways to like counter at? Is that concerns that come up?
It depends on where in the world you are.
Okay.
The regulatory agencies are just catching up. If you're in the EU, there is an EU Act for AI, and so there's very stringent requirements for transparency. And so having systems that mask the data before the AI is trained on the data is important.
Right.
Having a system that protects the prompts, again, the AI from the user and the user from the AI. So having those prompts protected from both sides, those are requirements and the transparency too. Those are requirements that we start to see a lot overseas. In the US, how I've seen our reaction to AI has been more from the White House and those executive orders.
Right.
There are details in regards to AI transparency that have come from an executive order that the agencies to receive funding need to make sure they meet.
So the government's catching up.
Yeah.
I'm sure, maybe a chatbot said something wrong. Maybe that's a legality issue too, right? Somebody
Huge.
sues a chatbot company, right? However that goes out. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have 2 funny stories about that.
You got to hear it.
Okay. Canada. There was an airline in Canada that
Yeah.
sold flights for 50 cents.
Where?
I know, exactly. It's not available anymore. But
Yeah.
the AI was, built to chat and to sell airline flights. Well, great. But
No
somehow
rules
it had the
around that.
wrong information, 50 cents. But, okay, there's also another
That
one.
sounds like the right information for the consumer.
That is true. But, how many 50-cent flights do you
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
A whole plane. They're just losing money left and right. The other one was a Chrysler dealership over in over in California. So the Chrysler dealership in California ended up selling a car for $1.
Man, I am missing out.
Yeah, a $70,000 car. The chatbot was taught to interact with the consumer. It asked the consumer,
Yeah.
what would you pay for the vehicle? The consumer says, $1.
Sold.
Exactly.
Verbal contract.
Yep.
You got to own it.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're scaring people from using AI a little bit.
Well, that's why you have to have the guardrails.
Right.
So there needs to be, disclaimers are important, but even in that instance, you have a buyer.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose the buyer.
Sure.
So you're needing to use AI to an extent. That's great, but something needs to be a checks and balances.
Right.
Again, the guardrails around the AI to say, AI, you can't respond back with $1.
Yeah.
Here's the minimum requirements you can respond with.
Sure.
You
So
can't do that.
processes, it seems like we're coming down to having an established vision with processes built around it.
Yes.
So before we even get into like how to do that, we talked about some bad. Maybe we could talk about what's some good like use cases and maybe some wins, right? Where are we seeing some adoption that we think, man, that's a really great use case. Customers would benefit from that, and employees would benefit from that. Where are some places that we could win?
Absolutely. So here's the big one: code generation.
Yeah. Okay.
It is there. Most organizations have a need for more coders.
Sure.
There's just not enough coders, or it is too expensive to have the human coders come in and support the team. And
Right.
so AI does a great job, just like low code and no code do, to assist with supporting with the code generation.
Oh, from custom code aspect though.
Yes,
right?
from
Is
a
that
custom code aspect, but then also for upgrading. So if we want to move from Java 8 to Java 22,
perfect.
AI does a great job. But what you need is a guardrail around that, because again, AI has a problem sometimes with hallucinating, but then also you want to make sure the code is, it doesn't have any bad coding or other coding
Sure.
issues within it. So we have a product called Code Analyzer that analyzes the code for any risks, tells the human, here's where the risk is located. They can take a look, and then it provides options for risk mitigation.
So if I have a team of developers, does that mean that I'm replacing my team? Am I enhancing my team? Maybe a mixture. Like what in that use case,
Yeah.
what is the general adoption? Because it sounds like we don't have enough. So are we enhancing teams?
Typically, it's enhancing teams. For the CIOs that I've met with, just even over the past couple of weeks, they've all said, "Oh, I need that because I have new coders on my team, and I need to understand what risks instead of just publishing their
control.
code.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to understand their risks, but then they need to also know where they are causing risks within our system.
Oh, that's a good one.
So yeah.
Okay, so code generation, enhancing developers, maybe allowing, let's say, startups to move faster,
Yeah.
or even big major companies to move faster and get creative. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of our clients had, we see bids all the time for upgrading of code.
Right.
Crazy, $20-30 million.
Right.
Well, now with AI coming into play, you're looking at a tenth of that cost, if not way less.
Wow.
And so
Okay.
you're looking at everyone saying, "Oh, AI is so expensive." It's really not.
Right.
And
well,
when
it's
we
probably cheaper than
compare it-
man hours, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those ROI, if I could say one thing, you have to have an ROI agreed to beforehand.
Interesting. Okay, so you have a
Yeah.
target base.
You
right?
have a target-
So you
you
have a
have-
plan, you have a committee, you have a target base, you have use cases that are actually going to drive efficiencies, not just spend endless amounts of money.
Exactly.
Okay, what's another one? So we did developers, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more, right? So
Oh my goodness. Okay, so just good use cases for AI in general. The top use case is customer service
Okay.
that is being used today. I believe that
obviously
was
with
at
no chatbots cussing out people, but restrictions
well, they're still
around it.
doing it. That's the funny thing. I believe we need guardrails. Some of my clients, which is kind of fun, some of the people I've talked to, I was like, "Oh, you don't want to do that yet. You will someday," because AI can't help itself.
Right.
It
Doesn't have a conscience, right?
No, and
Yes.
it literally is the best of us and the worst of us, and unfortunately, it's the dumbest of the dumb sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so chatbots,
Yeah.
customer service.
Yeah. So, and the next one is content generation.
Okay.
So any type of content generation, everything from emails, but marketing departments love to use AI.
I can actually attest to this. So
Yeah.
we had a CIO one time give us a
Yeah.
presentation about a book called Smart Brevity.
Okay.
Plug for that book, right? But
Yeah.
it was, writing very distinct emails that were very quick to the point, executive
Yeah.
presentation. So I actually used ChatGPT to, I had a rep that was writing an email super long, and I was like, there's no way anybody's going to read this. And so I
Oh my
actually
goodness, yes.
said, hey, in the style of this book, can you help me reduce the content but maintain the core value? And it was amazing. It got the point across. And I got a
Exactly.
response, right? So that's the best case. But
Yeah.
so content generation,
It's huge
emails,
for that.
marketing, any sort of way, right? So
So it was, I just pulled statistics up for the content generation. It was 72%, I believe.
Wow.
That's what it's being used for today.
Wow.
And so when we start to look at that, I love what you did. I think from my perspective, from the guardrails, what I would have loved is for you to have our prompt protect system
Right.
to make sure that your prompt was protected. The AI just needs some alias terms. It doesn't need to know who you're sending the email to or even the industry. So we have an automatic program that aliases that data. AI is not going to learn from it. And so it's not going to repeat
Yeah.
over and over again, anything that you've stated.
So I want to get to the products like that because I
Yeah.
think there's extreme value to protection, right? But I think that comes around the process. So
Yeah.
that gets into the point of like, where do we get started? So let's say this morning I had a CIO come to us and say they have 25 years of data, right?
Yeah.
We want to do something with this, but where do we start? How do we get going? I'm getting pressure from the board. They're asking me to do this stuff, but I don't even know what to do. So in that case, how would you get started?
So the first question that I would have is, what is the company direction in the next 1, 3, 5 years?
Okay.
So looking at that overall plan, that was one of the things that we would review together.
Right.
Then from there, we can make recommendations on what would provide how could AI come in and support those directions?
Right.
And then where can AI step in to either help create more revenue
Right.
or decrease the costs?
Sure.
I see a lot of people going after decreasing costs immediately, but it does great for increasing revenue.
Right, which solves the problem too, right? So,
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's a big one.
sure.
Yes. So with that, it's those initial discussions, really understanding what would be the biggest bang for the buck. Like when I sat down with that one client that had over 800, I was like, okay, so here's a rubric with like 5 different questions.
Right.
Answer those for each of these, and then we can resort and see which ones flipped up to the top. So there's usually a top 5
Okay.
that they go, okay, this will save,
X number of dollars.
$8 million here.
Right.
This will save $2 million. This will save $10,000. Now, fortunately, sometimes the loudest people are the $10,000 people,
Right.
and the quietest people are the $8 million because they're they're probably
Right.
so busy. So you really need to start assessing the response.
Where to start and how to do all that and stuff. So that
Yeah.
makes plenty of sense. So I'm going to go straight into a problem around data, right? And the
Yeah.
size of data, because I think one of the questions that I get asked specifically is I have this data and we want to process it, but am I supposed to plug that into ChatGPT? Because now I just let everybody in the world have all of my proprietary information.
Yeah.
And so how do I do that? Do I take the data away? And I'm leading into this question because of conversations we had this morning, right? But do I mask that data? Do I strip it? How do I protect my data and get started from that standpoint? So I've got use cases, I've got a plan, I've got here's my win that I want to chase. I've got a committee maybe established, but where do I start from a data protection standpoint? Because I'm assuming data in, bad data out, right?
There are some big issues
Yeah.
with the system. I just real quick, I wanted to mention some of the reason why we do what we do is because we're watching the marketplace. And honestly, I feel like I'm going like this most of the time and just watching through my fingers going, oh, don't do that, don't do that. One of the big ones that goes along with this conversation is the Samsung coder from 2 years ago when ChatGPT first came out. The coder put Samsung proprietary code into ChatGPT.
No longer proprietary now.
Nope.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as is typical with an AI, it now learned that code. So it gave that user what it needed, which was create, then, continue on with the code, create the next set of code. And the problem, though, is now since it knew it, it was providing that as
To
answers
other people.
to others. And so we start to have just a real mess in the industry, especially with intellectual property issues.
Sure.
And so for us, internally, we've been using some of the products that now we've brought out to market. One is the data masker. On the training side, we have really, there is a mess out there. And I'm really worried about where we're going if the direction that the marketplace tends to be going is we're going to scrub the data. We're just going to take things out of our data sets and then train the AI on that data set.
I'm gonna just see if I can put this in simple terms. I'm gonna take my probably already fractured data.
Yep.
Everywhere else. I'm gonna take fractured data and then I'm gonna fracture it some more, and then I'm gonna put it in to do analytics on it to make intelligent decisions to drive business outcomes.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're gonna take out all the names. You're gonna take out. We're redacting like we used to do when you could get a black pen.
Yeah.
And before you go into court, you're going to redact that way. Now,
there's got to be a better way.
There is definitely, and not only just a better way, the way we should be doing it.
Right.
Because right now, let's take one paper, and we're going in and we're blacking out what we don't want the AI to learn.
Right.
Now, guess what the AI does?
makes something up, right?
Yes.
Wow.
It is so smart. That's why we call hallucinations.
Hallucinations. So when we talk about a hallucination, we were talking about the generation of something that AI made up that wasn't necessarily true, which is why it's called a hallucination. Okay, great. So how do we solve that?
Okay, so with that, what we've built is data masker, which does masking and aliasing of the data.
Right.
So the AI doesn't need to know exactly, like it didn't need to know that Samsung code, but could I provide enough information to still get the response I need?
Right. So I could remove my IP, but still use the tooling.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we have a very advanced pattern program that will take anything that should not be in the system and mask it. So, and then those who are on the permission side can still see it, but others can't. And so you start to make it a permission versus it being on the front end.
So that's really interesting. And I'm not trying to cut you off. You got my brain turning all over the place now, right? So I can mask my data and then I can use it and plug it into there, right? So, but let's just say that I get an answer back. How do I still know that that answer is a good answer? Is there a way to go around that? Because again, like I'll put something in ChatGPT, and I'm sure I get an answer. I'm assuming, a large majority of the population takes, well, that's truth. It knows more than I do, so that's right. Is there a way to check that to see if there's accuracy around that, or is there some way to, protect against that for companies?
Absolutely. So on the front end with the data masking, that's for training your data. That's used just by the IT team. Now, when we talk about the user team, that process has already occurred. So on the user side, everything that the AI creates needs to be fact checked.
Okay.
So our system fact checker with the counterpoints is important because you can see here's the facts and pretty much here's the puzzle that we've put together to say this is where all this data came from. That the AI used to get the response. But then on the counterpoint side, here's everything else out there that it missed that had to do with that topic area that might be more on point. So what's the 100% negation? If the AI said A, here's Z.
Wow, so I can manipulate what I'm looking at and actually say this came from here. I don't want to look at that source. I don't want to do this. Okay, so we're solving a lot of issues, right? So we got, we solved the ingestion of cash because we're going to have an ROI. Savings or whatever. We've got a board that's going to help us, do that. We're going to put some regulations around it. And then we're also going to stop people from putting proprietary information into the universe.
Yes, we have to protect our intellectual
and then clean
property.
Data, right.
And then data that is usable by the AI.
Right.
That, the data masker is so key. Right. And the biggest issue that I see with the scrubbing and the redacting of the data, again, it's this hallucinations by the AI, and it is going to just come up with things. Right. And it's really hard.
You may make decisions off false information, right? So. Right.
That's key. So I was actually on, a good friend of mine is an SEC, one of the top SEC attorneys here in the U.S., and she had an AI system she'd asked me to look at. And so we're getting the demo, and they said, it doesn't hallucinate. I just started laughing. And, of course, within a minute, it hallucinates. But I'm not an SEC attorney.
So you don't know.
Neither was a sales rep. It looked like a great answer to me. She reads it. She goes, I would be disbarred.
Wow. Okay.
Because she's been doing this for 30 years, she knows the details. And she's even testified. So from that perspective, we have everyone, if you think about, it being this deep, AI is this deep.
Right.
Our subject matter experts are deep. And so they're really the only ones that know these answers. So if you don't have a system like Fact Checker and Counterpoint, you can't get deep enough. So you're just going to give this little baby answer that could be wrong and could cause massive issues for not only the company, but then also, with her, it's a legal issue.
Right. Well, what's interesting about, our relationship and how we get started and how we know, right, we're talking through a lot of this, which we talk about in depth all the time. All the time, and we can go on for hours about it. But I think the one synergy that I always see with our conversations is that we are subject matters in data. Right, and so we've constantly hosted data for 27 years. We've had great conversations with customers about what can I do with all this data that I have, and even data strategy. I think the one interesting thing that I keep running into, and that organizations keep doing, and right, wrong, or indifferent, there was maybe a technology like Oracle, and they tried to get out of Oracle and go into maybe Postgres and all these different databases, and then all of a sudden some organizations have upwards of 14 databases. So I've got shattered data, duplicate data. And so, it's an interesting time because we made all these decisions and now we're realizing, maybe I should have consolidated a database, or, maybe I have to regain some structure. So I think that's the fun part for me is, talking with customers that have all these large data sets, and then how do we take a step back and say, forget everything you know. Forget everything you know. What do you want to do? And then how do we get there? And then how do we help you? And then, by the way, we gave you great data sources, but there's still all this risk that we got to leverage our friends with, right? And how do we do that? So I love the partnership. I really appreciate your insights all the time. And I wish we could talk to everybody for a long time about this. I'm sure we will figure something out about that. But I'm really excited to see what we're going to do with some customers and some use cases and beyond what we're already doing. All right.
So generative AI is not always the right answer.
Okay.
There is over 90 different types of what we call AI, loosely. So there's a lot of opportunities to look at the data and give recommendations to the clients. You've got massive amounts of data.
Right.
That's why this marriage of our two minds together is so amazing, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of AI can do really cool things.
Yes.
AI also can do really horrible things.
Right.
You have the data.
Right.
But what data matching AI is going to make the most sense? But then what AI program is the best fit?
Yeah. I think that's what we navigate, right? And one of the cool things that we do with our customers. So typically with our customers, we're extremely sticky, and it's not because we come in and we make ourselves that way. It's just because we're consultative, right? And so we try to ingrain ourselves in the business versus just saying, hey, we're going to run your IT, right? We want to know what problems are, what are you trying to solve, what are the KPIs that we need to hit as an organization, combining us to go after that. And that's where a lot of this AI conversation comes up. It's that, hey, I want to go to do something with AI, but I've got all these problems and I got to get step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I think we're extremely good at step 1, 2, 3, and 4 to present the data and then to bring in a partnership like you to actually visualize that data and do whatever with that data. And so, for customers, that may look like an analysis. It may look like we go in, or it may just be sitting down with the business users. I actually just did this last week. I sat down with the CIO and he said, my CFO has these problems. And he's like, I need to know X, Y, and Z. The first thing we even got to solve is how do those things talk to each other, right? So how do we get those data integrated? Maybe it's an ERP, maybe it's a database, maybe it's a Workday, Salesforce, whatever that case is. And so we're experts at enterprise workloads and manipulating data and bringing it together. And so that is a huge part to getting to the AI conversation, because before you even get there, if you don't have the data source or correct data, then we can't get there, right?
That is key.
Yes.
Actually, if you were to say, what is one key to having AI work? It is exactly what you just stated.
Right.
Because that is a very missing piece right now.
The one thing about that customers always ask, and I'm shocked by this, but it is, what do I have? Tell me what I have. And I have one specific client that has, just with one vendor, over 9,000 line items and entitlements. And so what do I have? Where is that at? And so that is something that we can actually help with, is the mapping. Where is your data? Where is your technology? What do we need to do? How big is this effort, right? How big is the effort from your team, from our team, from Shawnna's team? Yeah. And how do we get there? And I think that's extremely valuable, right? And important, and the first place to start, right?
It is the number one place you should start. And on the AI side, it's having people who've been there and done that. Our team, most of our team members have been doing this for over 20 years. I can walk in and say, I don't use Gen AI for that. That's ridiculous. We had heard from someone earlier. He's like, oh, it's so expensive. And I was thinking, why are you using Gen AI to solve, it's like round peg in a square hole or whatever that is. So I think that's some of the issue is everyone's so excited about Gen AI thinking it's going to be the right answer for all the problems, but it just isn't. And so having those who have been in the industry for a long time say, no, in this instance, honestly, sometimes it's just heuristic algorithm. Right. It's something, not that that's simple, but it's something simpler that is a whole lot less costly.
Right. And that's, I think that's our whole goal. When I talk about the customer journey, what I really talk about is reduction of risk and reduction of liability. And
so important.
Yeah, because you can talk about the value of making $1 or the value of saving $1. Yeah. But if you have a lot of risk or have a lot of liability, then none of that matters. Like we learned about in your stories, right? And so that is our favorite thing to do with customers, and actually guide them on that journey as, hey, where are the places you want to go? The art of the possible, which I think is it's a very big buzzword,
Yeah.
but in this case, in where we are in the economic environment, in the transformational environment, again, transformation could be a bad word, but
Yeah.
how do we take the look at what is the art of the possible? And then how do we consultatively say, hey, this is the risk, this is the outline of what it's going to cost you, this is the timeline, does it make sense? And then if you say no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that is the most valuable part of our business in this whole AI movement.
Yeah.
Is saying, let's enable you to even have the words AI mentioned. Don't start at the end, right? Start at the beginning and then let's get there together.
Absolutely.
Right? So.
Yeah. And I mean, in the end, AI is the buzzword today. Tomorrow it's just going to be, we use it every day, whatever.
AI will tell us what's
I know,
next.
AI, actually, that's probably funny. It is, even, back in 2015, this is kind of a shocking statistic. When I was working in AI, we knew of over 1 billion people using AI in 2015.
Wow.
Majority had no clue.
Wow.
We have that today.
Sure. I'm sure.
It is. So I think that we need to just be purposeful in regards to the AI and matching it with the data sets. So I love that you're there. You're in the data. You know what the client has, and you can give the smart recommendations.
Right. Yeah.
So,
absolutely. It's a perfect match. Perfect partnership.
Yeah.
We obviously were introduced because you guys are a leader in AI. We're a leader in data.
Yeah.
What was it about Centroid that made you want to partner with us? I can tell you a million reasons why we wanted to partner with you, specifically around, again, de-risking and just ensuring customers have control, not AI has control over them. Yeah. But what was one of the reasons that you actually wanted to partner with us? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Absolutely. We have a lot of options, as you can imagine, for partners.
Yeah.
And first off, it makes sense. You are embedded in so many of the clients that really need support with their AI, and they need those guardrails.
Right.
But I would say, number one, what has put you at the top of my personal list?
I'm ready.
You guys are amazing to work with.
Thank you.
You are easy to work with. You respond very quickly. If I have a question, immediately someone gets back with me. It is a wonderful thing because not everyone is like that. And sometimes people take 2 to 3 days to get back. I have never had that with you all.
I love that. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a testament to your leadership team in bringing in really good people. Plus, nobody's whiny.
Yeah. Well, I think we share
we
share like a very big principle of integrity, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, we should actually answer with that.
Yeah.
It is. It's the integrity.
Because I think one of the things that I love about your organization is, again, you're bringing integrity to AI. Because I think that it's got there's a lot of danger around AI, but if we can control it, there's actually a lot of good that can happen.
Yeah.
And I think the people building those controls, you guys do an amazing job, and you have an integrity on your backbone, which is why you guys have foundations and things and teaching, college kids about it and actually trying to set up the next generation, which is something I personally think is amazing.
Thank you.
And so I love that you guys are like-minded people that we can bounce ideas off of and try to save the world one data at a time, one data step at a time. But I appreciate the partnership, so I had to put you on the spot.
I'm glad you did. No, thank you very much. It's important to me. And to do this, I mean, we literally, in my opinion, have about 2 to 3 years to get this right. If not, and AI does not have those checks and balances, we as a society globally are going to have massive problems.
Time's ticking. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.